Hello, and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Vronis, and today we are running exactly on time, hacker time, which is 5 minutes late. But we are doing the stream a little bit earlier than usual. I don't have any guests, and I don't have any excuses to do it later. So let's do it. Hello, James. Hello. Good to see that everybody's actually available at the time we normally schedule for. I almost always go an hour late because, if we have a guest or something special, I'm usually testing it until the last minute and need a little bit of extra time. But today, I've actually got an interesting tool I want to show with everyone. It's kind of an extension of some of the stuff we've shown off before. But it was also kind of an interesting example of being able to see some news on TikTok and then immediately in the hacker community, see the corresponding news trending. So yeah, really interesting stuff today. But of course, if you are joining us for the first time, or if you've just got a question that's cropped up recently, I am an expert on Wi-Fi, microcontrollers, open source intelligence, and a fair amount of other things, including making content on YouTube. So yeah, got a lot to talk about today. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start out with a piece of content that I saw on TikTok. And let me see if I can share my screen. All right, here it is. All right, so I was on TikTok and I noticed this video that seemed very familiar to me. And it says, I think someone's hacking iPhones on the subway. It goes on to say that they saw a little toast notification like that and they clicked on the X, didn't think anything of it. And then suddenly the phone turned off and started just being non-responsive. So this also happened to their friend. And they were like, well, that's really weird that having an iPhone, I would get this notification and then my phone would stop working just kind of all of a sudden at the same time. So as a hacker that has done a fair amount of experimentation, I often choose things like the subway to confirm whether or not something that I'm doing is working. Now, of course, I am doing research that involves listening. So like listening to Wi-Fi signals and seeing, for example, what they do in certain environments. However, other hackers using the flipper are maybe a little bit less scrupulous about this. So as soon as I saw this, yeah, I was like, this is like the Flipper Zero, or it can also be another type of device that's capable of doing Bluetooth. And those sorts of devices are getting cheaper and cheaper. So the story here was, oh, someone's using a Flipper Zero to be disruptive on the subway. That I think is almost the story. There's actually something that I think is a little bit more interesting because as a hacker, I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. It's clear to me that you can use a flipper, which is like how much are they going for now? Like $200, like $200+. Like this is a fairly expensive device. Like, yeah, like naturally it's going to be able to cause some chaos, but is it possible to do this with a more innocuous device? Can you do this with something that is a lot cheaper? I saw this video pop up on my feed literally as I was filling out the description for this stream. And I was like, wait a minute. So the reason I was almost late is because I rushed to go test this because I wanted to see, like, does this actually work on things that are less powerful and less expensive than a Flipper Zero? The answer, yes. So we all love the flipper. It's cool. But hey, what about this little purple board that costs like $3 from AliExpress? Like, sure, you could pay around like $300 with shipping and tax and whatnot, like depending on where you live for a flipper, or you could also just spend $3 on AliExpress, get this little purple board and be able to execute at least some of the same Bluetooth attacks. So I would say if the flipper can do this Bluetooth attack, then this little board should be able to as well. And I've been encouraged to see the S3 Mini appearing more because I've bought a lot of them. I have a lot of these boards. So because I'm so interested in that, I wanted to see whether or not this was an easy thing to do. So could the average person do a little bit of research and see what sorts of devices are vulnerable to these sorts of attacks using one of these low-cost devices? Or do you really need a flipper to guide you through this if you're not like a Wi-Fi hacking expert? Now, a little bit ago, I mentioned the things I'm good at. I did not include Bluetooth hacking expert. Sorry, that's what I meant earlier. Yeah, I'm not a Bluetooth hacking expert. It's not in my credentials. So if I am able to do this with a little bit of troubleshooting, then you should be able to do this as well. So unfortunately, my Arduino installation on this computer is completely messed up. But let's go through this video real quick and just kind of talk about what they are doing here. And I'm going to double speed it because we're on my stream and I don't have time to watch the whole thing. All right, so the idea here is that we're going to spam out a bunch of Bluetooth advertisements that cause an iOS crash. So I believe that this has been fixed because I was able to trigger the pairing notifications on an iPad, but I was not able to get it to actually crash. We'll try it again though. Who knows? Like, well, maybe on the stream we can get it to happen. So what this is talking about is sour apple. So sour apple is not the same thing as we were talking about before. This is not apple juice. So apple juice was just kind of spamming these pairing notifications. This is actually something that under the right circumstance can crash as well. So like we're looking at an escalation from just purely being a nuisance to actually a denial of service attack, which could potentially be dangerous. So this proof of concept is made for a couple different devices. It's made for the Raspberry Pi Pico. So that's getting pretty much as generic as you can get. And one of the samples here is actually using, I believe, MicroPython. And this is fairly popular. There's some good libraries for MicroPython that allow you to write Python proof of concepts that are easy to tweak. So I think that that's why a lot of researchers are choosing MicroPython over other languages when it comes to writing these proof of concepts. Now, of course, there's also an Arduino version, which is by far the most popular for these sorts of projects. But if we take a look at, if we take a look here at the GitHub repo, there are a couple of scripts included, and those scripts appear to be for both the ESP32 and then also the Raspberry Pi Pico, or at least that's what I believe. Is this actually, it's a great question for me to track down whether this is for the Pi Pico or if it is for the Raspberry Pi itself using its Bluetooth library. Now that I say it out loud, I don't believe myself. Well, maybe, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to see. The line is so blurry now with the Raspberry Pi versus the Raspberry Pi Pico versus the Raspberry Pi Pico W and such. Like, I really, when I just see a piece of code like this, like I really have to take a step back, and since it's not notated what language it's in, if it's Python or CircuitPython, or sorry, MicroPython, I hesitate to speculate. But this could be for either. And in fact, like the documentation on the main page does not specifically say what exactly is going. Oh, Raspberry Pi 4. Okay, that does give me the hint, doesn't it? So yes, it appears that that's just Python then for the Raspberry Pi 4. The ESP32S3 is what has Bluetooth as well as Wi-Fi. So I've been using it for its Wi-Fi, but it also has Bluetooth capabilities, and it looks like those are proving to be pretty useful in security research. So the ESP32, the original ESP32 before the ESP32S3, also has Bluetooth capabilities. I don't like it as much. S3 has native USB as well, so it's much easier to work with. So yeah, I would say if I was looking at anything to start to test out some of these interesting attacks on a budget, then an ESP32S3 would kind of be the way to go, honestly. So yeah, if you are just getting started with this and you want to explore what types of microcontrollers are useful, this would be one of my pieces of advice. Where is it? Sure, whatever. We'll look at there. Actually, why am I not going to Hackaday? That would be more appropriate. But yeah. Okay, no, I do enjoy the Unexpected Maker, and I can immediately identify when I land on one of his pages. So Unexpected Maker is someone who makes these awesome boards, these awesome like development boards for these chips, who like always buys up the domain space around the particular board that he's focusing on. So you go to like esp32s3.com and it'll just be all of his custom boards, and they all have kind of the same like look and feel. But I really like that guy. If you're interested in cool development boards, like that guy's cool. Okay, here's an example of an ESP32S3, but why is this not? Hold on, I think I need to. I'm being too generic. S3 Mini. I was assuming like this is what's interesting to me. This S3 Mini has been out for a while. It's super cheap. I love it. I think it's really it's both cute and also has everything I need to do a lot of cool stuff. There's like one or two little like things I maybe don't like about it. Like I have to hold down a button in order to like reset it after like programming it, and I have to hold down another button in order to enter like boot mode if I want to like flash new firmware to it. But overall, this is a really cool microcontroller. I haven't talked a ton about this in the stream because I work with its like, I don't know, like its little sister, this S2 Mini. And this serves most of my needs because, like I said, I'm a Wi-Fi person. I don't do a lot with Bluetooth, but I have to say, I bought a bunch of these. I really like them. They do pretty much everything that the S2 does, except they also have some pretty cool Bluetooth abilities that I keep seeing coming up in research. So, all right. So let's say you're interested in this. What are the features? It's got Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 4 megabytes flash, 2 megabytes PS RAM, a lot of GPIO. So I use these to build all sorts of like modular, like, I don't know, like a weather station, sensor, tunnel screamer, whatever it is. It has an RGB LED, so you can indicate like the state of it booting and stuff just by this like little LED right here, which is awesome. It's pretty useful. And then all these technologies that allow you to interface with sensors and that sort of stuff. MicroPython, Arduino, and I don't know why anyone would want to use Espressif IDF. I mean, I do. It's just awful. It's a roller coaster emotional experience using this one, but the other two are pretty nice. And I believe that this also supports CircuitPython now too. I don't see it noted, but I think that I've seen support for it. I guess we'll see. But anyway, so this board is what I have in my hand right here. We are going to plug this in. And unfortunately, like I said, my Arduino installation is fried on my Mac computer. It just will not write for whatever reason. So I'm going to use my $200 ThinkPad that I got off eBay with a trackpad that only partially works. I know that some of you probably have one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flash this real quick with this code that we have had provided for us. So let me just show you what I'm going to be flashing. I'm going to be, so if you were following along theoretically and you wanted to try this out, again, I feel like it's fine to show you guys how to do this because I just tested it and it does not work currently on like iPads. I don't have an iPhone, but I believe this is against just iOS devices in general, and it does not actually cause a crash. So before anyone gets mad at me, this little demo I'm doing is not actually capable, as far as I can see, of taking down a device. Let's see. Oh, this is a really great question. Is the Wi-Fi dev board for the Flipper Zero compatible with this? I think it's the ESP32S2. I bought the Flipper dev board originally when it came out, and I was kind of disappointed as I saw immediately it was basically like a breakout board for like debugging. It doesn't actually give you any sorts of offensive capabilities. I think that they're being really careful around this. I believe that the reason for that is like there's all this like licensing and stuff that's very, very hard to get in all these different countries for specific types of technologies. And you notice the Flipper doesn't really touch Wi-Fi. They do Bluetooth, but they don't touch Wi-Fi at all. So yeah, I've been kind of like mystified by this like dev board. And I'm going to pull it up just so we can take a look at it. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Wi-Fi dev board for the Flipper. So originally people I think thought that you would get like Wi-Fi hacking capabilities and stuff with it, but that is not the case. As far as I've seen, there hasn't really been a tremendous amount of development around unlocking the ESP32S2's ability to send arbitrary packets and do some of the sexy like Wi-Fi hacking research that other microcontrollers are able to do. So yeah, this is the Flipper dev board of which they speak. It is using, like I said, the microcontroller I use all the time for my own or open source projects. So I know a lot about this microcontroller. I use it a lot, and I know that unfortunately it cannot do the sort of Bluetooth stuff because it does not have Bluetooth built into it. However, Flipper, the Flipper itself does through a different microcontroller. So yeah, you could plug this into your Flipper, but it wouldn't give you any more or less Bluetooth ability because it itself has none. But it would give you Wi-Fi. You know, you might just have to flash this with some other program that someone comes out with because currently it just doesn't really do a lot. Really great question. Let's see. I'm not answering that other question. All right. So the code that we're going to flash here is under scripts. It is sour apple esp32.inl. And as soon as you drop this into Arduino IDE, you can just open this up and you'll need to add the board. So I believe there's additional board URLs or something like that around here. But if I thought I saw it included. I guess I didn't. Huh. I imagined it. Okay. Well, in order to make this work, you're going to have to install the ESP32S2 series of boards into your Arduino IDE. That's really easy. You just basically copy and paste a JSON file, and then you'll need to select the ESP32S2 in the form factor of the S3 Mini. After that, you'll need to install this library. How would one ever possibly do this? Well, in Arduino, you just go to Library Manager, type in this name literally. I just copied and pasted it, and it pops right up. You click install, and then you're ready to go. So I had to hold down the 0 button of my S2 Mini, which I'm going to do as I plug it in. That's going to put it into booting mode. All right, it's in. And now in Arduino, I'm going to make sure that I select the correct port that's selected. I'm going to press upload, and it's going to flash it. And let's see if we can get it to flash again, as I did before the show. Seeing as this is a somewhat live demo, I'm not sure if it'll work. So I'm going to pull up my iPad, and I'll go back to me on screen since there's nothing happening there. And this is my iPad. I haven't updated in a minute, but I think it's probably doing updates in the background. And we're going to see if we can get these obnoxious pop-ups to come up on the screen. So if you don't know who this is, I feel bad for you. Okay, it looks like it is successfully reset. So I'm going to unplug it. I'm going to plug it back in. And then I am going to, let's see, I think I have to unlock this to see. Any sort of Bluetooth result. All right, I've got join this Apple TV. So it is in fact working. I'm getting spamming pair requests. So the person in the video said that they pressed the X and then it caused like a reboot. So I'm getting another request to pair the Apple TV. I'm gonna press X again. Okay, so it looks like again, like this isn't currently working anymore. Like I was able to just X out of this. My iPad's working fine. There doesn't seem to be any major problem here. So, you know, I'm even gonna, let's be generous. I'm gonna reset the board. Oh, okay, it's still going. So what if I accidentally hit setup? Is it gonna do anything? I really want to see if this, I'm gonna feel a little bit bad if this crashes and this is still a valid way to break a device. Again, we're not really breaking it. We're just like causing it to apparently receive too many requests and time out, or otherwise like have a little booting issue. But it doesn't seem like anything's happening. This is certainly annoying, and but I can see I can get it off the screen still. So I would say compared to even the Apple Juice attack, like this seems to have been either recently patched or is not applicable to like iPad devices. So yeah, let's see. I'm going to reset it one more time. So I was wanting to run Sour Apple with the Pi Zero 2W with the Bluetooth dongle to get as much range as possible. Yeah, I think that you could start spamming these over a pretty broad range, especially if you're able to take raw, you know, like packets and then just broadcast them, rebroadcast them at a higher power or like with a better antenna. So yeah, I think this attack is definitely very obnoxious, and a lot of people are talking about it online. I'm going to reset this one more time. I just want to give this the best possible chance, you know, of being able to actually attack this device. But I think this has been updated. I don't think it's going to work. And also, hello, it's good to see you again. So James also mentions that you can flash the Marauder on the development board. The Marauder is kind of like a series of different programs that do different things depending on what hardware is involved. I haven't seen whether or not the Marauder has been able to do like deauthentication attacks just on the ESP32S2. If it can, please let me know, because that I was unaware. I've seen earlier versions of the Marauder that have combined the ESP32 and the ESP8266 together into one platform. That seems to work very well. So if they've combined it into an all-in-one, I would certainly be interested to hear. All right, so I'm not seeing any more of those spam requests on here. I think that we've effectively shown that this has been updated or patched, and that it is still possible to try out these attacks with this little board, but it is not necessarily something that's going to be around a long time. And also when they get patched, they tend to get patched pretty quickly. But I would definitely recommend the ESP32S3 and this S3 Mini as a board to check out if you're interested in getting into Bluetooth hacking. It seems that a lot of these proof of concepts, as soon as they come out for the Flipper, also come out for the ESP32, or in this case, the ESP32S3. So yeah, as a little microcontroller to invest in for future hacking, it's got bad USB, it's got the ability to do Bluetooth attacks, and it also has a Wi-Fi radio. While it isn't able to send arbitrary packets, I do think it's a really, really interesting tool to work with. So yeah, I'm super interested in this. I'm going to be playing with it more, and I do have to say, for the price, for a $3 board that lets you work with USB, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth, this is a very appealing board to me. I don't understand why more people aren't talking about it in terms of its utility for hackers to make prototypes that are really interesting at a very low cost. Because again, I'm getting these for like $3 or so if you buy them on AliExpress. Really, really fun to work with, although a little bit more difficult to solder, I will note. For some reason, they redesigned the pins on these. So if you're soldering them all in place, you'll notice they're a bit more difficult to solder than the ESP32S2 on the S2 Mini. I don't really know why. There's some sort of production change there. But anyway, so that's my tool of the week, I guess, for Bluetooth hacking, and I guess mostly just being annoying. Not a lot of security utility here. And again, this was something that was similar to the attack at, oh, look, it's back. It's trying its hardest. It reminds me of the attack that was going on at Bluetooth that was really getting a lot of attention, but didn't really do much besides just freak people out by making a pop-up on all of their devices. It seems, though, that people are really trying to like fuzz around and find out what sorts of Bluetooth attacks can affect nearby devices. So you can expect to see more of these attacks in the future as devices like the Flipper Zero become more central to research and more people use them to develop on. The kind of trickle down effect is nice, where people using a certain type of microcontroller based tool will really release a proof of concept, and then that proof of concept can be easily ported to much lower cost devices. Admittedly, this is not as cute. It doesn't have a screen. It doesn't have some of the things that make the Flipper really feel like a great tool. But ESP32S3, I'm actually looking at using this to replace the current ESP32S2 that I'm using, just because the Bluetooth utility is so tempting. And this does pretty much everything that the ESP32S2 does. So I really like both boards. Like I said, I work with the ESP32S2 a lot, but this one, I keep seeing it pop up in the news. I'm very interested in it. So, all right, moving on. We've had some content come out this week. So let's see. I think on TikTok, we had one thing come out that is a loop. We've never done a loop before. I don't know if that's enchanting to you, but it was for us. So here, let's see it. So I don't think we'll be able to see the audio, but here we go. Here we go. This was our piece of content this week. How do we find hidden Wi-Fi cameras using the Wi-Fi Nugget? We showed off the RSSI, or the fox hunting mode, where you can basically find a device that you think is suspicious. And then once you locate that, or rather once you scan it and find out what network it is on, you can track it down by walking around and playing a hot and cold game with the signal strength. So here you can see the signal strength going up and up and up, and we were able to identify the source of the wireless transmissions. So now what's cool about this, and look at that, it loops. I don't know. I think that's great. So what's cool about this is it works on two different types of networking devices. It works on access points. So let's say that you're like looking through the networks at your house and you notice like a weird network, like an IoT device or something that you don't recognize, and the signal strength is like really strong. It's like in the house with you. How do you track that down? How do you know like what device is creating an access point that you don't recognize? Well, this is the perfect way to do that. You can basically run a scan, you can identify the device, and then by switching to the channel it's on, sniff every single packet it's putting out and get kind of a hot and cold indication as you walk around to find out which device is doing it. Now, yeah, there's lots of like misconfigured IoT devices, or even sometimes devices that are smart that you didn't know were smart. Or things that were plugged in without you knowing they're plugged in. I've certainly plugged in a Wi-Fi Pineapple and then walked away from it and then like seen all these like scary networks pop up. Well, this would be the way that you can actually find that. So really fun video. The other thing that this is for is if you find, let's say that you're on, like go to an Airbnb and something and you want to make sure that there's no weird networking devices there that you're not aware of. Obviously, the concern would be a camera. So at your Airbnb, you could do this. You could take, let me go to the part of the video. You could do a scan, and that'll show you a list of all the devices that are connected to the guest network at that Airbnb. So you could see, if there's a printer and then maybe an unknown device too that's connected to that network. So if you're, a paranoid kind of person, like you could then be like, okay, is this like the Roku, that's connected to the network, or is this something like a nanny cam or something like that? Now, obviously, I would hope that, Airbnb hosts would not ever do something like that, but you see news stories about it, and I've actually been in the news before talking about how to find them. So you would run a scan, identify the guest network that you are wanting to find devices on. You would then run another scan with that specific channel number to make sure that you're not jumping all around and maybe missing packets that are being broadcasted. Because sometimes devices that are idle but still connected to the network won't really broadcast that frequently, and they can be a little bit hard to detect. So at that point, you can find the different devices that are connected to the network. And if one of them piques your interest, you can use this RSSI command, and you can use, in this case, we're hunting down an access point. That's why it says AP. But if we change this to ST, then we could select like the first, second, or third. In this case, since we're working with lists, 0 is the first position. We could select any of our search results or our scan results and then start hunting them down. So let's say that we run a scan, we find the guest network, we run a second scan on the guest network, and we find 5 different devices connected to it. And 4 of them make sense. 1 of them doesn't really make sense, or it's suspicious. We could then, and you can also see that here it attempts to identify the manufacturer of the device. That's really helpful. So being able to find out oh, this is like a known camera company that makes this particular device on the Wi-Fi network, that could prompt more curiosity and maybe locating where that device is. So, all right. So then we type RSSI, that's signal strength indicator, ST for station, and then whichever number of station intrigues us. And then very important, the channel number that we're hunting on. So whatever channel that device was on when we scanned it, we can set our scan to be on that channel, so we're able to hunt it down with more data, so we're not jumping around and missing packets. So once I run the scan, it'll start showing basically a bar graph of how strong the signal strength is. And you can see it's an inverse relationship. So as we get closer to the thing that's emitting the Wi-Fi, the RSSI value goes down. This isn't a perfect analogy, but I've described this to people as, you can think of it as like the percentage of signal loss, like how much of the signal is being lost. So if I have like a 90 here, that means like 90% of the signal is being lost. It's like a terrible signal strength. However, if I get down to like 20, that's pretty good. Here we go. So when it's right on top of the target, it got down to like 17 or 14. So that's pretty much the maximum signal strength you're going to get. And you can see here that this little bar gets higher and higher and higher until it actually goes all the way up. So that would be how you would be able to track down like, oh, this is a TV streaming device versus, oh, this is like an alarm clock that's plugged in, but then also for some reason connected to Wi-Fi and has a lens in it or something like that. So yeah, a little bit of, I guess, like Wi-Fi self-defense tips in terms of tracking down devices that are suspicious or even access points that are suspicious. 2 obviously different use cases, but I find that sometimes like cameras or other IoT devices that aren't configured correctly or haven't been set up all the way might have an access point that's like, hello, like I'm waiting to be set up, please set me up. So sometimes if someone has like a dual use camera they get off Amazon or something that you can plug in and connect to over Wi-Fi or plug in an SD card, they'll just plug in the SD card and the access point will just be there, just sitting there. And you might notice it, but not know what it is. This would be how you would be able to track that down. And this has happened to me somewhat in real life. So a little story about what happened. I was at a doctor's office and I noticed that there was an access point that was very clearly a camera that was up and didn't have any sort of authentication or anything. And, being that there was no password, I was like, all right, I'm going to join this and see what happens. I joined it and I could actually listen to a nearby medical office processing insurance. So they were talking about incredibly sensitive medical information, and they were basically doing it in a way where anybody could listen in. And I was like, wow, this is really bad. Like, I need to find out which office they're in. But this was a big building. I didn't know if they were above me, below me, like anything. Like, so I had to use this signal hunting technique to basically do a scan, find the access point and which channel it's operating on, and then do a fox hunting run of scanning for the signal strength on that channel for that access point until I found out which medical office had the misconfigured device. So obviously that could apply to you in, like I said, an Airbnb, a hotel, or something like that, where you want to make sure that there's no cameras there. But also, just as a security researcher, I've run into this need in order to just notify someone that their device is misconfigured. And then, okay, finally, this would also be very useful for proving that your neighbor is connected to your internet without permission. Oh, all right. Yeah. Yes. Also, Chris mentions like some of the new fire alarms that become IoT. Yeah, this is basically a way that you could track down any IoT device that is connected to a network or around. The only limitation here is that for this particular device, it only can do 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It can't do 5 gigahertz. So that means if your suspicious Wi-Fi network is on 5 gigahertz, you'll have to rely on another tool to do it. Although, admittedly, the Flipper can't either, and neither can a bunch of other tools. 5 gigahertz is kind of hard to get unless you are doing something that has 5 gigahertz built in, like a Raspberry Pi, for example, or just adding a wireless network adapter. So 5 gigahertz does add a little bit of a barrier to entry. However, some of the new microcontrollers coming out by Espressif do support 5 gigahertz, which I'm excited to try out as they arrive. All right, so that's one piece of content. And then I believe we had another video too, or maybe it's coming out tomorrow. So Angelina's video, which is, she's been on our show a couple of times. She is a pilot as well as a hacker. She has been working on a video about ADSB spoofing. So ADSB spoofing is a problem for pilots because it allows hackers to create basically phantom aircraft that everybody has to deal with and nobody is sure whether they are real or not. They can basically interject information into flight control systems relatively easily that would potentially cause a lot of disruption for pilots and flight controllers. So Angelina has been working on an AI-assisted tool that allows her to identify potentially spoofed broadcasts and basically allow pilots to sort through the clutter and figure out whether something is likely to be spoofed or if it is a legitimate aircraft they should pay attention to. Now, this hasn't been too much of a problem in the real world yet, but there have been many demonstrations about how easy it would be to conduct this sort of attack. So having defenses against it is essential to make sure that pilots have some sort of option to protect against this sort of thing, while the migration to a better system is dragging on and will not be complete for quite some time. So Angelina identified a lot of really interesting vulnerabilities with that system and addressed how a system could actually interpret and identify these in real time. So I believe that video is dropping tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. We've been working on it for quite some time. I think it's going to be a really great video that a lot of you enjoy. So yeah, that one's going to be on Radio Channel tomorrow, like I think 11 a.m. So stay tuned for that. And also, oh, I have to look this up actually. So Angelina is going to be hosting a workshop coming up that sounds like so interesting. So a lot of people have been interested in aviation security. She in particular has been focused on that with her last series of classes. So here it is. Okay, cool. So if you're in the Los Angeles area or SoCal area and you're interested in checking out a super interesting class on aviation security, Angelina is back at it with another class talking about signals intelligence in aerospace systems. So she's already been talking about satellite hacking. She talked about drone hacking and then aircraft hacking, although I had her rein that one back just a little bit to make sure it was kind of close to 9/11. It maybe seemed like something to be a little sensitive about. But this is going to be a signals intelligence workshop. So going to be much more focused on what information you can get out of potentially just sniffing aircraft signals. It's going to be at Null Space Labs. And definitely check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know why there's... Oh, wait. Why is there no link here? Okay. Well, I will find a link for this and I will share it as soon as my tab is done crashing. Yeah, no, there's no link there. Okay, well, I'll find it. But anyway, you can follow Angelina if you want to be up to date with her workshop. She's got a lot of great stuff going on. And here we go. Here we go. Okay. If you want to check out this workshop, you can grab a ticket from here. And I've attended several of these workshops before. I always learn a lot. I believe we'll also be doing an online version eventually. So if you're not in the Southern California area, then you can still absolutely both support Null Space Labs and Angelina by grabbing a ticket when we move this class online. So, oh, sorry, Curtis, didn't mean to drag your comment through all of that. All right, so yeah, that's what we have coming up. The aerospace cybersecurity workshop is going to be a lot of fun. I'm also planning a bunch of workshops for the C3 conference. So I don't know if anybody in the audience is going to be going to Chaos Communication Congress in Hamburg. That is going to be on the 26th to the 30th and is looking to be a lot of fun. I booked it kind of late, so it's going to be expensive, but it doesn't matter. It's one of my favorite hacker conferences. I've actually only been once because the first one I went to was the last one before COVID hit. And as I was flying back from that conference, somebody, as I was flying to the United States, was like, "Excuse me, like, have you been to a farm in Wuhan?" I was like, "No, why are you asking me that?" And you can kind of guess where everything went from there. So I haven't really been able to go to this conference except for, oops, I'm not talking about that anymore. I haven't really been able to go to this conference except for the one time, but I had a really incredible time. And one of the highlights of that was the self-organized nature of workshops. I was able to improvise myself a workshop and had a lot of really interesting and cool people show up and had a lot of fun. So this year I'm going to be hosting a bunch of different workshops there. I'm hoping to be able to, where's the chat overlay? Come back. I trust you. I trust you all. Come on the screen with me. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a number of different hardware related workshops and getting people interested in hacking while we're there. C3 is interesting because it's like less like DEF CON where everything is siloed and there's like villages and stuff, and much more like self-service. Like if you can learn the system and you can use the resources they provide for you, then you can book something there, you can do something there yourself. So I really appreciate the like do it yourself kind of attitude. Like the self-reliance thing is something that kind of like resonates with me, and the lack of bureaucracy I find to be honestly kind of refreshing. Like the villages at DEF CON, they're wonderful, I love them, but they're established. Like there's kind of like fragmentation and different ways of doing things, and like they have all these pressures on them. It's much like lower pressure environment I find at C3, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So hopefully I will see maybe some of you guys there. If you're going to C3, please let me know. I would love to let you know what kinds of workshops we're going to be doing, and also just say hi. So yeah, I'm going to be traveling there, I think the day before, and then leaving a little bit after the new year. So if you'll be around the C3 conference, we'll of course be doing a stream there and trying to bring you as much as we can about it. Oh, speaking of that also, I want to show you guys the tab crashed again. I want to show you guys the video that we released on SuperCon. So yes, view my channel. This is our highest performing video for quite some time. And I like to think that my thumbnail has something to do with that. I think it's cute. But I just want to say, of all the things we've done that were a lot of fun recently, like getting to go to this conference and show off like the best innovations or the most interesting things that happened, like that was like a dream job. Like I got to meet so many cool people. I can't recommend this conference enough. And yeah, thank you for liking and sharing and otherwise interacting with this video. It was a lot of fun to make. And I'm hoping to make something similar for the C3 conference. So if you've never been, I hope to be able to provide a guide for like if you wanted to go for the first time, what it's like to do it and how to actually participate. I find that conferences are great, but I feel a little lost if I'm not participating. Like it feels weird to me to just like kind of spectate. So yeah, overall, the C3 conference is going to be really great. And I'm going to be doing something like this Hackaday SuperCon overview for the C3 conference. So look forward to some live streams there. And then also kind of a wrap up video like this, kind of going over what's to see there, like what's worth checking out. So yeah, It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think the subject of the workshops that I'm going to be doing, we're going to be doing some circuit Python. So we're going to like teach people how to get started working with inputs, outputs, sensors, like that sort of stuff. Maybe even doing some stuff with Adafruit IO, making like a weather station or something like that. Just like simple enough things that you can just plug it in and get started. We're going to be doing a bad USB workshop. We're going to be doing a Meow Mixer workshop for beginner solderers. And then we're also going to be doing some of the Wi-Fi self-defense workshops that I've been showing off, including the techniques that I just went over of being able to track down a suspicious Wi-Fi device. So lots of different workshops. A lot of these were also derived from the cyber camp that we did in Montana. That was a 5-day cyber camp for kids age, oh my gosh, we had I think we had like a 10-year-old all the way up to like a 16-year-old. So some of these kids were really young and they were still able to master a lot of these lessons we threw at them. I honestly wanted to almost wanted to do the AI like workshop where like you go up against the AI wizard and like try to trick it into revealing passwords. But it has nothing to do with hardware. So like we're working with the hardware like hacking area, and like it seems like maybe that one wouldn't be quite as popular, but who knows? I've also been I'm just bouncing this off you guys. I'm also thinking about doing a workshop about writing microcontroller code with AI. So that might be a little bit tricky because like not everybody has access to the same AI model, but I have been using AI models to write code for microcontrollers for a while now, and I feel like I've gotten pretty decent at it. So showing other people how to get started making a proof of concept, do a feedback loop, like be able to test errors, it might actually be useful. Like teaching people to use these new AI tools to bridge gaps and make things go faster or build prototypes without needing to do as much programming. That could enable some interesting stuff. So I'm not sure if that's something that you guys think would be cool, but I've been thinking about that a bit. And I've also been thinking about doing a talk about using microcontrollers for education and what I've learned in the last year. High level, what I've learned in the last year is that if you can make it easy enough for people to have like an aha moment while using technology that they feel like they understand, you've succeeded. And anything less than that is fragmented and doesn't have the same type of resonance as like a real connection to what they're doing. So like, again, the cyber camp taught us a lot in terms of like what is boring and what connects. And we took note of things that made these like young kids like way more interested in the technology than they'd been before. And some of it was just like delight, I remember being able to show them how to do Rick rolls, or I don't know if anybody has ever typed curl parrot.live in a terminal and it comes up with like a rainbow dancing parrot in the terminal. Teaching kids how to do things like that, like got them excited about the technology enough to learn it. And also the ability for microcontrollers to be accessed, flashed, and used through a web browser has completely changed the opportunities for using them in a classroom setting. While it's still not perfect and there's still a lot of problems, the price drop and the ability to seamlessly teach different lessons with the same device and have it be like a low-cost microcontroller compared to like a more expensive tool, it's incredible. Like it really does make it easier for anybody to teach this sort of thing. So I feel like at the conference, there will be a lot of educators there, and some of them, might be interested in like actually applying these lessons themselves, and like having a budget of a couple $100 actually stretch a lot further for buying devices to show lessons in cybersecurity or just, like making things. Question, will this be recorded? So this current stream is recorded. Yes. And then also the C3 conference, if I do a talk there, it'll be recorded. So the one that I'm trying to propose all date, yes. However, the workshops probably will not be recorded, unfortunately. But this stream that we're currently on will be recorded. You can just go to this link after it's done and it'll be up. Plus, we also do cutouts. So if there's any segments that are particularly spicy or interesting, we usually cut them out into shorter segments and release them throughout the week. So yes. Such a great stream of late. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of people are interested in my takes on like AI topics since I use the tools so much. It's really hard to stay on top of them. Like I asked for I asked for a computer at work for like being able to run a lot of these AI tools, and I got it, and it worked for a week before it got locked down to the point that it won't run them anymore. And I learned so much in that short period of time in terms of like how these models work together to achieve a result, kind of like what's going on behind the scenes when we're working with like image generators, and how like it's actually, yeah, just like a layer of AIs working as a team to like create something from scratch and then upscale it and then like up the resolution, then add detail. It's really, really interesting. But again, kind of confusing because the technology is moving so quickly, and it changes all the time. So I would consider myself like a user level, like of knowledge for these AI tools. Like I try to stay up with the most recent features, and I use them enough that if you're not using AI all the time, like I can probably provide some useful advice for getting good results out of it. So that's one of the major things I've taken on, frankly, because I hate writing proof of concept code when like when sometimes I'll have a problem and I will know that the correct way of solving it is to write a quick like debugging proof of concept or like some other like side program that'll diagnose what I'm doing, but it's just going to take like an hour of my time. Being able to effectively have like a co-programmer that's an AI that can write these tests for me and help me diagnose an issue, it's really, really useful, I have to say. But I do also understand the argument that going too hands-off and not understanding how the code is working is really dangerous. I still immediately hesitate to run code that an AI has written on my computer, like with like root permissions or anything. Like if I'm running it on a little microcontroller, like I said, this thing, nothing. Like this little microcontroller is so cheap. Like I don't care if I fry it because I have a bunch more, and they're so cheap that I can continue to buy more of them. But when it comes to this computer, this is the only thing standing between me and chaos. So I will not be running like AI Python code like on this yet. I still haven't used Bard, but I'll get to it, I guess. That's my attitude as well. Like I think that Bard has a long way to go, and I haven't seen any evidence that it's gotten substantially better. If someone were to convince me, like through evidence that it were particularly good at coding, maybe it is good at certain languages, but the programming languages I work with are just a little bit more obscure. Arduino, I think, is becoming easier and easier to work with because there's so many examples online, but MicroPython and CircuitPython are still not the easiest. So yeah, Bard is not at the top of my list, although I do pay for ChatGPT 4, and it's honestly pretty good. But you can also get similar results through using like Bing's like AI chat. I just honestly prefer like the OpenAI interface, and it seems like they are generally like one of the better ways of getting code for some of these more niche languages right now. Bard, yeah, I didn't find it to be particularly helpful. It just rehashing my issues with it, it creates libraries that don't exist, or like it references libraries that don't exist. So you'll be writing code and it'll keep failing, and you'll try to find how to install the library that's that it's not finding, and it just doesn't exist. It never existed. So some of that is also getting confused between different similar languages. It'll get MicroPython and CircuitPython confused, which is a real problem because they are not the same. They don't have the same language, don't have the same libraries. And you can't just take like a MicroPython library and bring it into CircuitPython and expect it to work. It doesn't work that way. So yeah, I would say that Bard is lagging behind a bit in terms of being useful for microcontroller programming. Although again, maybe for just regular Python, it's perfectly fine. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've never seen you talking about the flipper. No, I've talked about the flipper. I feel like I talked about the flipper. We got through all the features and then we were done. So I guess my overall take on the flipper is I think it's an amazing device that's taking a potentially dangerous like business model of generating like hype and interest through having people adopt it and use it as a like almost like a bleeding edge research tool. I've taken the much more conservative approach, in my opinion, of like building tools that facilitate education. And then if people want to push it to the point that it is a bleeding edge tool, like that's great, but that's not my primary goal. Flipper keeps getting regulated out of existence in places like Brazil because people see it being used in things like stealing cars and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, this should be banned. Like, obviously it's a tool for crime. Now, it's not, but it sure does make crime easy sometimes. And that's why there's kind of two different classes of abilities that a flipper has. The stuff that works built in. So when you get the flipper and use the official firmware, there's a lot of different things you can do that just work out of the box. And then there's add-ons, mods, and bleeding edge research. And those are the kinds of things where researchers will contribute or port their stuff to Flipper, but you have to do some stuff in order to make it work. Like, it's not explicitly supported by the developers, but you can get it working. A lot of the really interesting research is in that second category, stuff that the developers do not want to touch because it's going to get them in trouble, and it's gonna like make hot water even hotter by like adding heat from these other notorious attacks people are doing with the Flipper. So if they're over here making it, built in to do these Bluetooth spamming attacks, and people start shutting down phones on the subway left and right, like, you better believe that this is going to get in even more trouble than it's been in before. So I think the Flipper is an awesome device. I'm glad something like there is out, like it is out there. I really like the team, and I also think that it facilitates a lot of really useful learning. I also think they're in a dangerous position, and they're naturally being cautious about what kinds of things they officially support. I think they're brave for doing that. But yeah, some of the stuff that's really interesting that's coming out, you have to do some extra add-on stuff in order to get it working. So I don't focus on Flipper primarily because of its cost. I would say that of the different platforms, like, not everybody has one yet, and I prefer to focus on things that cost, when broken down to its cheapest components, like less than $20, like, is kind of a goal for me. I'll explore things that are a little bit more expensive, and like, obviously, like, I also make and sell open source things that are just a bit more than that because we have to make them ourselves in this basement, and it's time intensive. But yeah, like, we've certainly been focusing more on things where if you wanted to build your own, it wouldn't cost you that much money, because I want at least the stuff that we're teaching to be as accessible as possible. So that's kind of the reason behind my preference for small, inexpensive microcontrollers versus tools like the Flipper, or like Hack5 tools, for example. Like, Hack5 tools are expensive, like Flipper is expensive. I like, so anytime something comes out that's like really noteworthy, I've definitely demonstrated it here. But for example, this Bluetooth attack that can be run on a Flipper or be run on something like this, I'm going to focus on this because, like, I feel like more people can afford it, I guess, is the point. But yeah, I've also done some videos on Flippers, and I think a lot of people struggle with knowing like what sorts of attacks are like meaningful or like actually work. And I know that initially a couple of my friends were just like, they would get one and then they would walk around just like tagging like door readers, like getting those like the handshake, and they'd be like, got it, but they wouldn't know what they got, and they wouldn't know really like what it meant. And maybe somebody could figure out how to like flip open like the Tesla chargers, and they'd like walk around and do that. But after those two tricks, like, a lot of people run out of stuff to do with the Flipper. So yeah, like, there's definitely more you can do, and learning how to use the built-in tools properly, I feel like is one of the things they haven't been super strong in communicating. But I'm starting to see more content come out from them that's like sponsored content that's like hitting my page like relentlessly on like TikTok and other places, showing how to use it for specific things. I think that content's good. So I'm glad that they're getting around to it, because I admit, like, I haven't focused on them as like something to be teaching a lot about, because again, not everybody has a Flipper, and I like to keep it on like a slightly lower budget. If I could at least like half of the Flipper, like that would be usually my budget that I focus on. All right, so I think we're just about out of time today. I've talked about Angelia's upcoming workshop, her video that's going to drop tomorrow, which you guys should look out for. It's going to be really great. We also have the upcoming workshops at the C3 conference. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. And yeah, I think that's just about it today. So obviously we also demonstrated using this little microcontroller to attack this big iPad, and the results were annoying. I guess what I would say, they were obnoxious. So if you're interested in trying out this attack, it looks like it works on a Raspberry Pi 4. It works on this Lolin S3 Mini, which I love, by the way. And it also works on the Flipper. So you can take your pick. I think of those in order, the Flipper is the most expensive, Raspberry Pi is in the middle, and then the S3 Mini is like I said, like $3 to $5, depending on where you source it and how many you buy. I buy a lot of them, so they are like $3, sometimes less. Plugging it in one more time, I am yet again graced with this pairing request for an Apple TV over Tata Simonian, blocking his beautiful face and annoying me, however, not crashing this device. So while I can no longer stare into the eyes of the Prince of Armenian Pop, I still can use the device. So it looks like this has been patched, and we can confirm on the show that while this is easy to set up and do, We're not actually teaching people how to do denial of service attacks. But again, kind of an interesting loop to like see this on my like For You page on TikTok and be like, I think that someone's hacking like iPhones, and then immediately see the proof of concept be widely shared in the hacker community. And also a little bit of pushback from some people who are accusing the developers of these apps for Flipper to be like making it too easy for people to execute these attacks. So a lot of debate about this in the hacker community. I'm not really going to weigh in other than to say like research is research, and like if an attack is so easy to do, it certainly seems like an update was pushed pretty quickly. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, definitely be definitely be cautious when doing these sorts of attacks. Obviously, if you're actually doing denial of service attacks, or if you're causing people's devices to not work anymore, that could be something that you get in trouble for. So obviously, whoever was restarting devices in the subway potentially had the ability to cause damage. And if they did that, if the data maybe wasn't recoverable from the crash, like they could be potentially found to be like destroying like computer systems that weren't theirs, which is a crime under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So please be reasonable while trying out these. As I said and demonstrated, this is not something that can actually cause a crash at the moment, but I certainly don't want anyone taking what we show in the stream and getting in trouble. So, all right. So if you enjoyed the stream, per always, you can go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. That's me. And you can check out our link of the week. It's a free way that you can let everyone know you appreciate the show. They do check to see how many people go to the link each week. And if you want us to keep doing it, it certainly helps for you to do that. So you can check out that link in the description or just type it in your browser. Appreciate it. So that's going to be all we have this week. Looking forward to Angelina's video tomorrow. Looking forward to the workshop coming up. And we'll also, of course, be doing our news stream on Friday, where I go through all the hacker news of the week and maybe any updates to these Bluetooth hacking tools that I've been working with. So yeah, all right. Thank you, everyone. I will see you on Friday. Goodbye.